I never believed in fate. To me, life was just a series of choices and consequences, nothing mystical about it. But that changed the day I found the journal. An old, dust-covered book that didn't just tell the story of the past, it predicted mine. It all started when my grandmother passed away. She'd been the heart of our family, the kind of woman who remembered everyone's birthdays, who could cook a feast out of scraps, and who kept every secret like a vault. After her funeral, I volunteered to help clean out her house. It was an old farmhouse she'd lived in for nearly 70 years, filled with antiques, family photos, and memories packed into every corner. On the third day, I was cleaning the attic, a place I'd never been allowed to enter as a kid. The air was thick with dust, sunlight leaking in through cracks in the wooden roof. Old boxes, broken furniture, and yellowed newspapers filled the space. But what caught my eye was a small trunk tucked away behind a pile of quilts. It had a brass lock and my grandmother's initials carved into it. The lock was old and fragile, and with a little pressure it snapped open. Inside were letters, faded photographs, and at the very bottom, a leather-bound journal wrapped in linen. The cover was cracked with age, and the name on it was barely legible. Eleanor Gray, 1912. My grandmother's name was Margaret Gray. I had never heard of an Eleanor. Curious, I opened the first page. The handwriting was elegant and old-fashioned. It began like any diary would. June 5th, 1912. The rain hasn't stopped for days. The house feels alive tonight, as if it knows something I don't. The next few pages were filled with typical musings about daily life, weather, crops, neighbors. But then the entries started to change. The tone became uneasy. June 12th, 1912. I saw him again, the man near the oak tree. He was watching the house. Father says no one was there, but I know he saw him too. I was hooked. I flipped through more pages, reading faster. Eleanor wrote about strange events, voices in the night, whispers in the walls, objects moving on their own. It read like the diary of someone slowly losing her mind. Until I got to the entry dated July 1st, 1912. Something terrible is coming. I can feel it. The house trembles when the wind blows. Mother says it's just the storm, but I dream of fire. I see faces I don't recognize. One looks like me. I froze, because right below that, in the corner of the page, was a crude drawing of a young woman standing in front of the exact same farmhouse. The resemblance was uncanny. She looked like me. Same brown hair, same birthmark near the temple. My stomach twisted. I laughed it off at first. Maybe it was just coincidence, or maybe I was reading too much into it. But then, a week later, something happened that I still can't explain. While clearing out the basement, I found another box marked, "For Margaret." Inside were family documents, birth certificates, property deeds, and photographs. One photo stopped me cold. It was dated 1938 and showed my grandmother as a child, standing next to an elderly woman, Eleanor Gray. On the back of the photo, someone had written, "To my dear niece Margaret, the curse ends with you." I dropped the photo. Curse. What curse? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the journal, about the drawing that looked like me. So I went back to the attic with a flashlight and started reading again. The next few entries were more disturbing. Eleanor wrote about dreams that became real. She described seeing visions of people she'd never met, people who looked like future versions of her family. July 10th, 1912. The little girl with dark hair. She will lose someone close. The storm will take him. That sentence hit me like a punch, because I had lost someone close, my father, to a boating accident during a storm. But the entry was written in 1912. Now I wasn't just freaked out, I was scared. How could this woman, who lived over a century ago, describe something that hadn't even happened yet? The next day, I brought the journal to my mom. She brushed it off as superstition. Eleanor was probably just a distant relative with an overactive imagination, she said. Your grandmother never mentioned her because she didn't believe in that stuff. But when I showed her the drawing, the one that looked like me, she went pale. That's unsettling, she admitted, her voice shaking. I decided to dig deeper. I started researching our family tree. I learned that Eleanor Gray was my great-great-aunt. She lived in that same farmhouse until 1913, the year it burned down in a mysterious fire. Most of her records were lost. Some people claimed she died in the fire, others said she disappeared. But here's the thing, there was no record of her burial. Weeks passed, and the more I read from the journal, the stranger things became. Lights flickered in the attic when I opened it. My phone would glitch near the trunk. One night, while I was reading an entry aloud, I heard a whisper, faint but unmistakable, coming from behind me. Keep reading. I froze. My flashlight flickered, then went out completely. When I turned it back on, a new page lay open, one I swear I hadn't seen before. It read, August 4th, 1912. The house belongs to her now. She will come back when the time is right. When the rain returns. I didn't sleep that night. The following week, a massive storm hit our town, the worst in decades. Lightning cracked through the sky, and thunder shook the windows. At exactly 11:37 p.m., I heard a loud thump from the attic. Against every instinct, I went upstairs. The journal was lying open on the floor, pages fluttering wildly in the wind blowing through a broken window. The candle I had left near the trunk was lit, though I hadn't lit it. And then I saw it. On the last page of the journal, a new entry had appeared. The ink was still wet. October 17th, 2023. She has found me. The storm has returned. Tell her the truth. It's not over. My heart stopped. That was today's date. I ran downstairs, shaking, clutching the journal. And in the background, standing by the window, was a faint, ghostly figure of a woman in old-fashioned clothes. My mom stared at it for a long time. That's impossible, she said. This photo was taken in 1999. The next morning, the storm was over, but something about the house felt different. Calmer, almost lighter. I decided to put the journal back in the trunk where I found it. But before I did, I flipped through the last few pages one more time. There, written faintly in the margin, were 4 new words that hadn't been there before. You broke the cycle. I didn't understand what that meant until weeks later. While going through my grandmother's papers, I found a note she'd written years ago. The Gray family carries a shadow. It began with Eleanor and ends with her reflection. When the journal returns to its place, so will peace. That was the last thing she ever wrote. Now, the house feels still. The whispers have stopped. The lights don't flicker anymore. But sometimes, on stormy nights, I swear I hear the faint sound of a woman's voice humming upstairs. Calm, peaceful, almost like she's thanking me. I don't know how the journal could predict the future, or how Eleanor knew about me. But I do know one thing. It wasn't just a diary. It was a bridge between the past, present, and whatever force connects us all through blood and memory. And now that it's back where it belongs, I finally feel like the story is complete. Or at least, my part of it is. Because sometimes, the past doesn't haunt us to scare us. It comes back, to make sure we remember.